Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial series. In this series we're going to create something like this game maybe. A really simple yet powerful third-person character controller which will be able to ride almost anything. Yeah, GTA. We're going to create a game like GTA inside the unity3d in the simplest way possible. So make sure to stay tuned and follow this tutorial series and follow me in this journey. Now, without further ado, let's just jump right into Unity. Okay everyone, we are in Unity and let's just start. For start, first thing first, just drag and drop your 3D character and model into your scene and just add our first component, which is the animator, and we are going to set the avatar. You can just have this avatar by clicking on your actual model after importing in Unity, and on the rig tab make sure the animation type is set to humanoid, then hit apply. It will generate a default this is the name of the character. It will generate the avatar for you and you can just apply it to your animator and you're good to go. The second thing that we need is to create a animator controller for our character. Let's name this one main character and then apply it into the controller field of animator. By double clicking on the animator, it will open the animator window of Unity. Here is the place that we can add our animations for our character and just breathe some life into it. If we hit play right now, as you can see, nothing will happen because we don't have any animation to play. So we have to add some by right clicking on the animator window, create a state, empty. The first state will be shown with a orange arrow, which represents the default state, and the default state is the state that will be played instantly after entering into play mode. So the default state of our character is the idle. Let's just add our idle animation. I will zip all of these animations and put the link for download them in the description so you can download them and follow this tutorial without any problem. So after adding idle state and entering into play mode, you will see that the character will play the default state, which is the idle animation. Nice. We breathed some life to our character by adding some animations to it and play it in runtime. So let's just add our movement animations into the character by creating a blend tree and call this one movement. So I will add our motions, which are, I believe, 8 and 2, 4, 6 and 8. I will fast forward the video and just rearranging this animations and applying clips and applying the values, and then I'll be back. Okay, now we have our animations and we have a value which called blend, but we're going to change this one into the parameter tab of the animator, and let's just rename this one horizontal, and let's create another one which is a float variable, and let's just name this one vertical. These values are representing our movement axis. We are going to use them for our movement axis. In the parameter horizontal, let's add vertical. Now we have two parameters. Vertical will drive the animations for forward and backward, and the horizontal will represents the x-axis, which is for left and right. So let's get back to the base layer and make a transition from idle to movement, and a transition again from movement to idle. We're going to code in a bit later and just play these animations using code and our keyboard and just move the character with them. So we need a boolean here, which is called as moving, and then on the conditions tab of the transitions, first thing first, just remember to untick has exit time in both transitions, and then let's add a condition and set this is moving to true. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make is moving true when we touching our keys on the keyboard, and if is moving is true, then the player will transition to a movement state and start to moving, and if is moving is set to false, which when we unpress the key on the keyboard, the character will just stick back to the idle state. So in the transition from movement to the idle, let's just create another condition, and let's just make this is moving to false. If is moving, transition to movement. If not is moving, get back to the idle. So let's just run these without code in the editor mode and see if we can get the desired results. So if I let's just imagine we are doing this by code. It's moving, and yeah, transition to movement. Not moving, get back to idle. Moving, not moving. So if is moving and the amount of vertical is greater than 0, start to walk. As you can see, the blend tree will start to working perfectly fine. Okay, everything working fine. Now let the fun begins with creating a C# script let's just name this root motion control. Apply it to our character. And let's just open it. I'm using a great plugin called Script Inspector, which is opening C# files right inside Unity editor, so I don't need any external, IDE or programming softwares like JetWriter plugins or Visual Studio or something like that. So it's a great plugin. I recommend you to just go and check it out on the asset store. Let's just start coding by declaring our variables. Alright, what I did in here is very simple. I just created the input and then passed the value of the inputs to the animator parameters, which we already created here. So by pressing the W and S on the keyboard, which are represented by get axis vertical, we're going to pass the input value of the vertical into the vertical float of the animator, and the same for the horizontal. So let's just hit play and test to see if it's working. If I hit W on the keyboard, as you can see, is moving is checking, setting to true, and then the player starts to walk. And this is how I'm checking the is moving to true, by checking if the vector 3 is not equals to 0, which will be, the condition will be met only and only if we press the key on the keyboard. So if we press the key on the keyboard, then the vector 3 absolutely is not equals to 0. Then we pass the value to the animator and just pass those values to the vertical and horizontal of the blend tree. So right now we are moving our character by clicking and checking the apply root motion, but let's just do it through code, and by calling the onAnimator move, then change the velocity and actual velocity of the character using the root motion and the velocity that baked to the animation clip. So I will again pause my voice, start the code, and then I'll be back after finished coding. Okay, we are done. What I did was I just implemented on animator move. As you can see on the character, the apply root motion is now handled by a script, which means we are driving the root motion using the scripts and with the onAnimator move function. We are just moving the position of the player using the delta position and velocity of the animation, the speed and the velocity that baked to the actual animation, and just playing the character using those delta position velocities. So let's just test this out to see if it's working. If I press play, the movement is triggered, but player won't walk because the root motion weight is set to 0. Now if I pull the root motion weight up to 1, then player starts to walk with the velocity and the speed that baked to that animation that is playing right now. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are going to have a 2 character controller inside 1 character controller. I mean, we have a arcade character controller that has the ability to turn on the root motion on it for a much more realistic movement. So let's just try the non-root motion version by just adding some speed to the movie speed field, maybe 2, and make sure to set the root motion weight to 0. And then, as you can see, we have a arcade character controller. If we increase the speed, I can see the difference between the root motion version and the arcade version of the character controller, which is, in my opinion, a generic character controller out there that everyone loves to use. Of course, you can just go into the animation tab and set the speed of the animation to 2, and as you can see, I can just play with these values to match the movement and the position of the player together. But I really love the root motion version, because it will use the velocity that baked to the animation for much more realistic movement. We have a little jitter, and I don't know why it's happening. Let's just review our code if there's any problem with that. And yes, here is the problem, sorry. We have to set this to get axis and set this one to get axis raw. Okay, now that we have our character up and running, let's add a simple camera system to it, a third-person camera system, by adding a Cinemachine free look camera. Of course, I will create a dedicated tutorial about Cinemachine and all its components and all the camera system and types that Cinemachine includes. But for now, and for the sake of simplicity, let's just add a Cinemachine camera into the scene and just add our character as follow and look at target. Let's just add a empty game object as a target. Into the body of the character, and then apply this one as the follow and look at target. Okay, let's hit play. starts to walk, but as you can see, it's not facing to the direction of the camera. So no matter where the camera is facing, our character is only walking in a locked axis sort of thing. So let's fix that by adding some lines of codes here. I will again fast forward the video and I'll be back soon. Okay, what I did in here was very simple. I just created a public field for a game object that will be represented as the reference for the player that will follow the direction of that reference, which in this case is the main camera, because the main camera is the only thing that will rotate around the player, and we will use the forward axis of the camera as a reference for our player rotation. So whenever the camera is rotating and wherever the camera is looking, the character will start to follow that direction and start to walk to that direction. So let's just hit play and see if it's working. It's not working because of this rotation speed. As you can see now, if we rotate the camera, the player will start to rotate to that way, because we are setting the transform.rotation equals to our reference.transform.forward. So wherever the forward of the camera is looking, then our player looking into that way. As you can see, this is the forward of the camera, this is the forward of the player. Okay, now what if we don't need the player to rotate if it's not moving? I mean, just make the player rotate if it's only and only is in move state, and don't rotate in idle state, just like this. As you can see, we can just do that by simply creating a boolean here, or we don't need that boolean. We can just use an existing boolean, which is if is moving, and just move that rotation code into the is moving condition. So if the player is moving, then start rotating to the direction of the camera. If it's not moving, just stay there. If it's moving, sorry, again I forgot to add the rotation speed. So if it's moving, then rotate to the direction of the camera. If it's not moving, just stay there. If I face this direction, then hit W, just start rotate to player to that direction, and then start to move. So yeah, this is it for this tutorial. I hope you liked it and enjoy this one. Make sure to stay tuned, there's much more coming. We're going to create and add much more features to the player as the times come and whenever we need during these tutorials. For the next tutorial, I will cover and create the complete camera system for the player, and after that we're going to create the helicopter controller, car controller, bike controller, and make the player be able to ride all of them, and even animals, as I said. And yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to leave comments, like the video, and stay tuned for the next ones. And until the next one, cheers. Hello everyone, I'm from future. I just forgot to add some component which will avoid the player to just go through objects like this. As you can see right now, the player will go through the objects. We can fix it by adding two type of components. One is a capsule collider, make sure the height is the same as the player, and the radius is not big enough, maybe something like this. And by adding again another component which is called rigid body. And yeah, now our player won't go through those obstacles anymore. I don't know why. Okay. Let's just remember that you have to freeze the rotation on the X and the Z axis of the constraints of the rigid body tab. Just uncheck the Y because we need the character and player to just rotate with the camera system. So if I hit play now, yeah, as you can see, the player won't go through those obstacles anymore. In the next tutorials we're going to add much more for this character, something like a jump feature, sprinting, running, and almost everything. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.